Hey everyone. This week I had the chance to sit down and speak with filmmaker Carl Medland, director of The Spiritualist and the Paranormal Farm trilogy. Carl spoke with me about his horror inspirations, his love of horror, and the future of found footage. Enjoy.
Film.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to ask you, have you always been into horror films?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been into horror films. As a young person, I was just always growing up with my older brothers. They really got me into. I was like the younger brother. I've got a younger brother and sister, but certainly with the older brothers, they liked horror and they brought me in at a very young age. It's probably around 8 or 9 when I was watching films that you probably need to be 18 to watch. So I kind of always, I love the art in them. So like I remember as soon as
Yeah.
I could subscribe to Gore Zone and Fangoria and was into the special effects of
Mhm.
films. But I just like being scared and like I liked feeling that fear. So I always think like the 80s, the beginning of the 80s were like the best, all the 80s I thought had some of the best horror
Mhm.
that I like to sort of look back and try to. I
Yeah.
guess a lot of the films I do really just emulates a lot of what they're doing in that golden era of horror. But I
Mhm.
remember as soon as it was like, you know, horror to video cassette and going down the video shop and just choosing the films. I remember when we watched Friday the 13th the first time, I remember just literally when the body come through the window, can't remember at what point, I just remember jumping back. And that's
Yeah.
the biggest jump I've ever had in any horror film.
Mhm. What horror films in particular influenced you to make your own?
So I guess I like films that like The Shining. I like films that have there's certain themes like isolation seems to be
Mm.
a common theme in all my films, like the Paranormal trilogy. You're isolated on a farm.
In the spiritualist, there's a lot of talk about psychics, and there's a seance, and there's also some of that in Paranormal Farm. Now, are you interested in that stuff in real life?
Yes, I am. It's so I'm very spiritual, and I know when I grew up, I was reading lots of books like Teachings of Don Quran. I was reading lots of Doris Stokes books, and I used to go to spiritual church and try to sort of tune in and get messages from those that passed over. And then I remember, I mean, when I wrote the spiritualist, a lot of it is inspired by true events. Certainly, with my spiritual beliefs. I mean, I used
Mhm.
to suffer really badly with night terrors, and I think it was around the time I was very much trying to tune in to my psychic eye. I'm still open to spirituality, but I think because it did affect my sleep and affected episodes that I used to get with night terrors, I
Mhm.
think actually I kind of wanted to close the door on that chapter, knowing it's there. And
Yeah.
I have 100% belief. But I think the more I practice it and the more I read and live it, then I think the more I invite it. So that's where I've just got slightly stepping back. Then I go and make a film about it, which is exactly stepping back from it, but it's a way of processing it. Like quite often you can be really into spirituality and the other side, but you can be at disconnect with it. You could be
Right.
slightly naive. And I wanted to ramp up the naivety of this person that's
Mhm.
new to these psychic abilities.
Script wise, is there dialogue, or is a lot of it improvised?
So it's 100% improvised.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, so certainly with Paranormal Farm 1, I turned up with a mobile phone with Taz, and actually we went to do a recce to see if there's a opportunity to do a film there, and we went there for 2 days to sort of test it all out. And actually in those 2 days we shot half an hour of the film, and we thought it was test, but actually watching it back thinking no, all we need to do now is come here for another 3 days to finish the film. So we did sort of shoot it in about 4.5 days, but I want it to be authentic. And I know when we talk about authenticity within found footage genre, quite often you still have sound people. And if
Sure.
you
Yeah.
open it up that, yes, we're doing this with, like, I guess if you go to some of the big classics, and like obviously they have a crew, they have sound and a cameraman, and you see them, that's part of it.
Right.
But I wanted to very much set up like, because this is as much of a parent, it's a investigation. I'm just capturing it on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Certainly in part one, I thought I can't fool the audience by having a crew because you got to show that. So
Yeah.
actually, but the benefits of that is a, you can just take out the phone and what you capture. Obviously, you're very mindful of lighting and sound and
Mhm.
wind, but you got to know if it is windy that that's the way it will play out in the film, and you can. It's got to feel that authentic, and I think that's what people liked about it. It wasn't manipulated. It wasn't over produced. It was
Yeah.
just it had to feel real, but also because Darren and Lucy are really farmers that live on the farm. they're not used to performing. So it was quite nice just going like this and how are you, Darren, Lucy, is quite unintimidating.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not with big lights and sound. So once they relax around you, you just capture those moments of spontaneity and you find them on the farm, you carve out your scene. And based on whatever you get from that scene, then I sort of think about, right, where can I take this? And I think, aha, I need to take this there. So I'm responding to what I get.
My take of it is that the Spiritualist and Paranormal Farm they feel like two very different films, but yet they also feel very similar. And I think you mentioned once before that you felt like they were sort of in the same universe.
Yeah.
And
Because obviously in the Spiritualist, the actual woman, the Spiritualist Caroline, it's, you know how her
Right.
fortune plays out. So the only way I could bring her as the same character into part 3, I thought, would it be nice if I could bring her back in, but as the same character? Yeah, so I thought actually no, I could bring it in and sort of position it like she takes a phone call when I'm in her house in Paranormal Farm 3, and she's talking to Petra, and it's Petra before you come to the house. So I thought it's sort of set up like it's her a job that's got doing a spirituality that leads her to the house. That's just a backstory for me and her, and most people won't even see that.
Now, did you always intend on making Paranormal Farm as found footage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I think it's because what it was born out of a little bit of frustration and a little bit out of wanting to be creative and change a style of direction. I think with this Spiritualist, because you spend a lot of time raising money and having to get everything signed off, and I wanted to make a film for fun, and I wanted to just be passionate. It's more a workshop for me to see, because I love storytelling and I love being in the now. And quite often, like, nature will inspire you to do something in the now, and you can't script those things or storyboard them. And I thought, let's just go out and just spend a few days creating a story in the now based on all my love of horror, bringing in what I know, and just play and have fun. When I had this sort of 4.5 days, and it didn't need much editing because it's pretty much shot in chronological order, as we intended it to play out. I'm really happy with the story we're telling, and then it's only ever supposed to be a one-off though. It's supposed to just be, it's an adventure. But because we had so much fun,
I
thought, oh my god, there's so much more story to tell. And then people were saying, I would love to see another one. I thought, well, I know how I ended up at the end of part 1. How am I going to do that? I've got to come back to make the behind the scenes for the film, which is implied. So it kind of opened up. But actually, I thought for part 2, that's what made it a little bit more. You have like an authenticity within found footage, but then when you acknowledge that's a film, then you're diving deeper into a different meta authentic approach, and it kind of spins it on the head a little bit, and it makes a lot of viewers are a little bit unsettled, like what's real, what's not, but it made them curious about needing explanation to see how it sort of fitted together. And I quite like that ambiguity that and kind of sort of, I like playing with narrative in where people don't really know what's real until the next scene, and they don't know how things are going to unfold. So yeah, it was as a directing experience, it was really one of my richest experiences and one of my most fun experiences. And yeah, you're just not disabled by storyboards. I like horror that's based on real horror, like the horrors of illness, the horrors that we live day to day. And I like the approach and what, like demonic, what's not. So there's a similar synergy between the Spiritualist and that, with mental health and spirituality and demonic possession. What I don't like in found footage is when there's just obvious jump scares, when it's when there's not much of a realness of a story. But I like films with purpose that know that it's got some kind of narrative. It has a message at the core. When Cloverfield came out, I thought that was a nice little new spin on it. I like it because at the moment it's quite similar styles of found footage. But I think where it's going to go is more interesting. So I don't think we're just going to see found footage and horror. I think other genres will be playing out. And I'm trying to think now, how can I do another film that's not maybe horror with found footage? What else? What storytelling techniques would lend itself to that?
Now, do you have any upcoming projects?
So yeah, so Part 4 was supposed to happen this year. There's a house I got in mind in LA, but I've also got people. Have you seen the Bad Ben films
Yes, I have.
with Nigel? He lives in New Jersey, isn't it? One of the fans of the film said, "Oh, you two should make a film together." And I reached out to him, the guy Nigel playing it. He goes, "Oh yeah, if you come over here, we could team up and do something." So that was another idea, like maybe bringing two sort of paranormal experiences.
Crossover.
Yeah, another little crossover. And I think one of the most complex scenes, I don't know if you remember in part 2 when I wake up, then you think I'm walking around there, I see Down and Lucy in bed, and then
Yes.
And that was an interesting scene because, and then you think it's me walking around, but then you come in and then you see that then they film me on the bed and you think, oh, but I thought Carl was the one filming it.
Yeah.
So that was interesting because it was actually me filming it. So I did get up, I filmed Down and Lucy.
Were they really sleeping?
No, they weren't. So
okay.
we had to stage this a little bit.
I was gonna say that would be creepy.
I'd give them little instructions like just be asleep. And then so from there, then be asleep until I go into Taz's room. Then when you hear me go into Taz's room, you've got to run quickly downstairs and put on these masks. They were the masks downstairs when I went down.
Okay.
And then as I came out of Taz's room, Taz would put on the mask. And as I came around out of Taz's room, Taz would take over the phone.
Yeah.
I'd run into the room. So it was all choreographed. So he just took over the phone and we switched. So it was all very, because literally
choreography.
It was just the 4 of us and we had to make it like more people in the house.
Right. Thank you so much for this.
Excellent.
Bye, Carl.
Right, take care, Matt.